Hello class, my name is Grady Beecham and I'm going to be talking to y'all about the French Revolution. The French Revolution was one of the most monumental and influential events in 18th century Europe. It completely shifted the way that people related themselves to the state and as well their ability to shape and craft their own destinies. Motivated by Enlightenment thinkers such as John Locke, Thomas Hobbes, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, we saw these ideas about liberty, equality, and social contract theory completely change the way that people oriented themselves to the state. In Censer and Hunt's Liberty, Equality, and Fraternity, they discussed the context of the revolution, they discussed the events of the revolution and the conclusion of the revolution to give us a picture about how these events occurred. The ancient regime was the political system which ruled before the revolution came into place. The king ruled over all the subjects, yet because of extreme poverty, food shortages, and massive debt, there was a lot of political and social tensions. And so the king had to enact or invoke the States General, which was a group of clergymen, noblemen, and common people, which represented the three estates or parts of society in France, in order to kind of solve these issues. Yet after the common people were ousted from this States General, they formed their own national assembly, which started making demands on the king and enacting the will of the people. And this was really the roots of the revolution. After the storming of the Bastille, the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizens, which gave sovereignty to the people, they took a lot of the power from the king, established a constitutional monarchy, and implemented social equality and freedom of press. The revolution was in full swing. The king, obviously unhappy about these events, decided that he needed to find a way to conserve power. So he talked with the Prussian and the Austrian leaders and convinced them to enact war on the revolution. And obviously, that didn't work out too well for them. The king was caught for his treasonous acts and sentenced to death by the revolutionaries. The National Convention, which was the evolution of the National Assembly, created democratic rule over France. Led by Robespierre, who was a lead speaker and Jacobean member, brought in a new age of the revolution. And this time is called the Reign of Terror. The Reign of Terror is basically the use of violence to strike fear and control the people of France and get rid of those who tried to dissent and kill the counter-revolutionaries. He imposed martial law over the nation, he implemented spy police, and suspended the Constitution, all in the name of protecting and continuing the revolution. As we see in different diaries and memoirs, such as Retif's The Diary of Terror, or Diary of the Terror, we learn about the regularity of horrific events. He talks about the number of marches against hunger, the report of thousands of people being political suspects in the prisons of Paris, the need for civil certificates in order to walk the streets, and then the fact that it didn't matter whether or not you were a general, aristocrat, servant, roofer, policeman, anybody could have been seen as a counter-revolutionary and sentenced to jail and potentially death. Now, in an attempt to consolidate power, the Committee of Public Safety was created, which was formed under Robespierre and was basically a dictatorship over France. They called for more blood, they called for censorship, they called for de-Christianization, and the main goal was to create a sort of republic of virtue, which he believed could only happen through more terror. Now, in Over the Hill, The Anatomy of the Revolution at 50, Knutsen and Bailey discussed this sort of Thermidorian reaction that occurred in the French Revolution. The model of this is basically that the revolution begins at a moderate phase, shifting into a more radical phase, into an extremely terrorist phase of terror, and then eventually shifts into a Thermidorian reaction, which brings it back to the more moderate stage. And this occurred in the French Revolution through the death of Robespierre. After the death of Robespierre, though, a man named Napoleon rose to power, beginning as an artillery soldier and then shifting into a more military leader through his campaigns in Italy and in Egypt. He committed a coup that dissolved the Directory, which was the ruling entity over France between Robespierre and himself, in which he named himself the first consulate of France and gave himself the right to serve for life as its leader and with greater powers than King Louis before him. Now, the revolutionary culture is a really unique part of this French Revolution. And Robespierre, the cult of the supreme being, we learn about how he saw that there was a need to create an artificial revolution. Artificial religion. This religion was meant to capture the ideologies and the values of the revolution and represent it by a deity, as this is something that civilizations have done for centuries before. Additionally, through the memoirs and the diaries, we learn about the ruthless killing and the widespread fear that people had that were embedded in the basic everyday lives of people during this revolutionary time. Furthermore, we learn about the de-Christianization of French society, where they renamed streets, they changed the calendar, they shifted to a 10-day week instead of the 7-day week, all of which to kind of rip out the sort of old systems of the past and replacing them with systems of the revolution. Then lastly, we had the use of symbolism. In Lynn Hunt's The Imagery of Radicalism, we learn about how specifically Hercules and Marianne were symbols of the revolution that shifted as the revolutionary movement shifted. So at the beginning, they were more symbols of power and symbols of aggression and symbols of pushing towards liberty. As the revolution shifted from being a movement to gain power to being a movement in power, we see these symbols also shift to being more paternalistic and wiser and older and tranquil, which were reflections of the movement at the time. Now, there are a number of historical debates that are also often talked about when discussing the French Revolution. They talk about was the revolution a result of the Enlightenment ideas? Was it because of liberty and equality that people latched onto and wanted to create change, or was it because of the fact they didn't have bread and that they were in constant poverty that they wanted to change their situation? Furthermore, there's debates about when is the end of the revolution. Was Napoleon part of the revolution, or did the revolution end with the death of Robespierre? Furthermore, we have different debates about was the revolution successful. The ideology obviously didn't, or the ideas of the people in power obviously didn't continue as Napoleon was the king. Yet was there parts of the revolution that maintained? What were the effects of the revolution? How should the revolution be remembered? All of these are ideas that historians often talk about and are still up to debate between them when discussing this extremely unique time period. Now, when discussing the nature of revolutions, it's helpful to kind of compare them to other revolutions. The Russian Revolution was a similar European Revolution in the sense that it had a lot of aspects that were the same as the French Revolution. There were shifts in revolutionary ideology. There was a call for more rights and rule by citizen at the beginning, which then, oddly enough, shifted towards an even more extreme and harsh dictator than the previous regime before it. Furthermore, there was an extreme use of violence in order to not only gain the power, but control the people and get rid of the counter-revolutionaries. And lastly, you have the idea about, was it the ideologies, was it Marxism, or was it the poor conditions, was it the peasantry, and the poor conditions that the people in the industrial cities were under that prompted the revolution. All of these are different aspects of revolutions in general, the shifting in ideology, the ruling through terror and violence, and the uncertain conditions about its beginnings that make revolutions interesting and integral part of history. Well, thank you all for listening. I appreciate your time.